My name's Andrea Burden, and I manage the authority's Sustainable Development Fund on a daily basis. I've got a short presentation for you this evening, so a series of slides, and then also I've got a few facts and figures, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of the successful projects we've been involved in. So what is it? Well, the Sustainable Development Fund is a small programme that the National Park manages. It aims to support projects that result in positive benefits for the Yorkshire Dales National Park, its environment, its economy and its communities. It provides a simple and accessible source of money for local projects. A project will be eligible for consideration if it contributes in some way to looking after the National Park's natural beauty, the wildlife, cultural heritage, or it promotes opportunities for people to understand and enjoy those things. There's also an opportunity to provide some local economic benefits and some benefits to the local community. We look at projects that can provide and deliver multiple benefits, value for money, clear outcomes, and a legacy. This year, we've got £155,000 to support local projects that support a most sustainable way of living, working and visiting the National Park. It's now in its 20th year of operation. So far, it's given out nearly 3.4 million to 455 projects. So that's quite, it's quite a good deliverer. The money is paid to the authority on an annual basis from DEFRA, and each of the 15 national parks receive funding. It isn't ring-fenced in any way. It once was, but it now forms part of our core grant. And the Yorkshire Dales National Park Authority decided to keep the SDF, whereas others didn't. The fund is open to community groups, businesses and individuals, and offers money either to kickstart a project or to develop it for the good of the local community and the national park. In the last year alone, the SDF gave out £185,000 to support 16 projects worth over 2 million in total. So what makes an eligible project? A project's eligible as long as it contributes in some way to the national park purposes. So that's by conserving and enhancing the natural beauty, wildlife, cultural heritage, promoting opportunities for the public to enjoy the area and the special qualities, and to provide some local economic benefit for the community in the national park. There's various themes that we can support. So wildlife conservation. So the SDF has supported a wide range of projects. So projects that heritage themed projects that have benefited, leading to the protection of the built and cultural heritage of the area. Improving access to broadband across the whole of the park has been something we've focused on in the last few years, and the fund has helped to get a number of community broadband schemes off the ground, but more about that later. Projects that have contributed to the future growth of the local economy by expanding our local produce and developing small business ideas that help to contribute to retaining the special qualities of the national park have been also supported. These have resulted in positive benefits for communities in the national park. Visiting, learning and engaging is one of our most popular themes. We have supported a number of projects that have helped people of all ages and backgrounds to enjoy and learn more about the area. So people that can apply, the type of applicants we get and we can consider are individuals, community groups, and that includes parish councils, community interest companies, private businesses and voluntary groups. So how much can you apply for? Well, there's no minimum or maximum grant. However, the total fund available for this year is £155,000. And with this, we have a target to support 15 projects. Projects that contribute to the national park and bring multiple benefits and have a long-term outcome. Registered charities and voluntary community groups and non-for-profit groups can apply for up to 75% of the project costs. All of the types of applicants can apply for up to 50% of the project costs. It's therefore important to consider match funding. This can be sourced from other grant programmes, private finance, or from gift-in-kind contributions, such as volunteer time or non-cash contributions. The SDF itself could be used as a form of match funding for a larger project, and that has happened quite a few times, so where the principal source of finance has come from somewhere else. We do have a set process in place. Once an application is validated, it takes about 4 weeks for us to deal with a delegated application. We can determine applications for £5,000 or less at officer level. If it exceeds 5,000, then we consult our chair and deputy chair of our finance committee. Applications that are above £10,000 are reported to the authority's finance and resources committee. Now, they meet on a quarterly basis, so a bit more scrutiny is involved with those applications as the value increases. And sometimes we ask for a business plan, 3 quotations, just that so that we can find out if the project's going to be robust and if it's got every chance of success and if it offers value for money. Each application is assessed by specialist officers at the National Park. We then offer some advice back to the applicants if any gaps arise, and applications are scored against a set criteria which considers environmental, social and economic benefits. If the project is sound and contributes to the National Park, then we can make a grant offer. So here we have, going to go through a few slides now that just show you some of the projects we've been able to fund in recent times. So this is the opening event for the Johnny Walker Lathe Pavilion in Hawes, which was developed by the Upper Wensleydale Sport and Recreation Association. They were looking for additional funding to pay for improvements to the facilities on Hawes Community Field. The improvements included the installation of a new kitchen inside a small traditional building that's now used as a pavilion. They provide catering for community sports events, and the total cost of this project was £123,500. The SDF made quite a modest contribution to this, which was £6,075. But it did make a difference, and it did make sure that that project was able to go ahead. The main objective of this project was to provide a space where the community can store their equipment safely, but it also provides basic facilities. And it's hoped that these improvements will enable this building to remain in active use and help sustain the current footfall, providing a welcoming meeting place. The applicant managed to secure quite a lot of donations in advance of applying to us, and they managed to benefit from grants from Richmondshire District Council, the Community Investment Fund at that time, and also the local football team, Hawes United. There was also a local contributor private donation to this project. I mentioned broadband earlier on. Community broadband has been something that we've supported for a number of years. So since 2016, we've contributed over £200,000 to broadband, and that's been normally for broadband for the North, which is a community-led scheme. The fund has been able to support 15 schemes, and those have been in Ireby, Mason Gill, Chapel-le-Dale, Dent, Garsdale, Casterton, Thornton in Lonsdale, which includes Westhouse, Barben and Middleton, Clapham, Sedbergh, Lunds, Mallastan, Cotterdale, Ravenstondale and Wharton. So I'm hoping some of you will recognise some of those names. And all those schemes are now fully operational. So approximately 3,169 properties have now got a connection. And the installations are expected to deliver broadband with speeds up to 1,000 megabytes per second. The project falls primarily within the south and the west of the National Park, and that forms a natural extension to the network for the Barn Hub, which is near Carnforth. The funding for these projects was in the form of loans and shares in response to their model. Barn has had an important role to play in delivering the National Park Management Plan's objective, which is about providing fibre to the premises broadband by 2024. And it's helping to fill a gap for many residents and businesses in more isolated locations. The schemes are generally funded by a government voucher scheme and local shareholders who are particularly keen to make the area an attractive place to work and visit. This is a project, it was a really lovely project called Making the Folly Accessible in Settle. It was developed by the North Craven Building Preservation Trust. The project led to the installation of a new audio unit, plus the purchase of some resources for the Give Pete a Chance exhibition, which took place during the autumn of 2022. Many of you will be aware that the Folly is currently the home of the Museum for the North Craven Life, which focuses on the social, agricultural, industrial and built environment of the North Craven area. Displays currently consist of static objects, collections, interpretation panels and artwork. The new audio installation should attract a wider range of visitors and enable the museum to widen its offer to include oral history and video facilities. The installation was used as part of the Give a Pete a Chance exhibition, but is now used for other exhibitions. This project offered the public a more enhanced and wider visitor experience, and the total cost of the project was £2,474, and the SDF contributed £1,853. Match funding was provided by North Craven Buildings Preservation Trust. This is a new project, still to get off the ground. It's St Michael's Church, which is located on the western edge of Hudswell Village. The images of some of the trustees who applied for funding. It's a Grade 2 listed building constructed in 1885. The church closed as a place of worship 6 years ago. The project aims to repurpose this church to provide hostel-style accommodation for visitors, walkers and cyclists. The application sought funding towards costs associated with the acquisition of the building and works required for conversion to its new use. It was accompanied by a business plan and funding strategy. The proposed hostel will provide low-cost visitor accommodation for up to 16 people, includes a kitchen and a lounge area, and the grant will be used to part fund the cost of the conversion work. This was the biggest single grant requested from the SDF in over a decade. The grant offered was almost £50,000, and the total cost of the project is estimated to be ever-changing, I'm afraid. Some match funding has been secured, but fundraising is still ongoing. We're hoping this project will still go ahead, but at the moment they're still fundraising, so we'll see what happens with this one. This is the Friends Way, and this was the Sedbergh walking and cycling group who successfully obtained funding towards a new walking guidebook called the Friends Way. The trail starts at Pendle Hill and finishes in Ulverston, and the route passes through a number of villages including Hellifield, Kettlewell and Ribblehead before heading towards Cumbria. The historic walking route is approximately 80 miles in length and follows one that was taken by George Fox in 1652, and it relates to the formation of the Quaker movement. The main objective of this project was to encourage more people to walk and cycle to the area. The group already promote a range of long and local distance walks on their website, and this new route will add to this. The guidebook is 70 pages long, and they've done a print run of 350 books so far, and the book retails for £12.99 per copy, and it can be available online. And the SDF contributed a very small grant of £292 to this project, but it was match funded through Christopher Robin Trust and Sedbergh Charities, and the group contributed some volunteer time to make the project happen. Project was the Upper Wharfdale Agricultural Society who applied for funding towards the upgrade of Kilnsey Show's promotional website. Kilnsey Show takes place at the end of August every year, and this show is run entirely by volunteers. It's taken place for over 120 years, and it attracts up to 15,000 visitors. Sorry. The event takes place against the backdrop of Kilnsey Crag, which is in the heart of Upper Wharfdale. As well as traditional displays of livestock, the event also includes dry stone walling, handicrafts, produce, and horticultural exhibitions. The upgrade to the website has led to a more up-to-date content, and it enables visitors now to purchase advance tickets to the show online. Total cost of the project was £3,000, and the SDF contributed £2,250. The remaining funding was derived from the applicant. This is a photo of Jamie McEwen, who's the farm manager, and Mark Horner for the Kingsdale Head farm. They were visiting the area, and it's located 5 miles north of Ingleton. It's a large remote upland farm consisting of 608 hectares of moorland, native woodland, a farmhouse and holiday lets plus farm buildings. The owners are implementing a regenerative farming model that seeks to promote nature recovery and carbon capture, including large-scale habitat creation enhancement and peatland restoration. Alongside this, the applicant plans to diversify the farm by creating additional holiday accommodation and a farm office education room to help develop the site as a visitor destination. The electricity supply to the farm was single phase, which meant that the amount of power was only suitable for domestic applications and was not sufficient for the additional visitor accommodation they wanted to provide, and also the educational developments. So the owners were keen to reduce their dependence on fossil fuels and to reduce carbon emissions on the farm. A natural watercourse, Backstone Gill, was identified as being suitable for a small-scale hydro scheme with an output of 4 kilowatts per hour. It has also a battery storage system. It will reduce the carbon emissions for the farm enterprise by using this natural resource, and it will also enable the full development of Kingsdale Head as a visitor destination to take place. The SDF contributed £26,000 to this project, and the total cost was just over £66,000. Match funding was provided by the applicant. And I apologise for the quality of this photo, but it's such a lovely photo, I wanted to show it to you today. This is St Mary's Church. It's a Grade 2 listed building. It's constructed in 1820, and it's located within the Swaledale and Arkengarthdale Bars and Walls Conservation Area, so it's in Arkengarthdale. It remains in active use for worship, and the community of Arkengarthdale wanted to make a dual use for this building. The photo is of Primrose and Betsy Burks, who declared the community hub open. They created a new internal meeting place for groups. The space is available for social events and meetings. The space enables the church to continue to operate. The changes included accessible toilets and storage area in a new extension, changing some of the floor levels, removing several rows of the pews to create the space, installation of a new kitchenette, and a mobility ramp. The project has created dual use, and it's a more usable community space. This operates alongside the place of worship, and it does mean that this has safeguarded this building in active use. The SDF contributed £10,000. Total cost of the project was just over £162,000, and the other funders that contributed included the Swaledale Parochial Church Council, the Duke of Norfolk, Richmond District Council at that time, the Churches Trust, Garfield Weston, and donations from the applicant. This is my final slide. If you've got any ideas for new projects, you can contact me. You can download an application form, and the guidance notes are available on the SDF webpage. We also have our annual summaries available on the website, so you can read about past projects. So you can contact us by phone or drop us an email. I'd now like to pass you over to Edward Sexton, who is the owner of Glencroft Country Wear based in Clapham. He's going to tell you a little bit more about his project that used local wool to develop products, including knitting yarn and tweed. Thank you.
So, yes, I'm Edward Sexton, and I'm going to give you a brief background on my business, Glencroft, and then I'm going to talk you through our Clapdale Wool project, which was partially funded by the Sustainable Development Fund. So I'm a partner in Glencroft with my parents. That's the three of us in that photo there. We're a family business established in 1987 in the Yorkshire Dales National Park village of Clapham, which is also where I grew up and went to primary school. We're a country clothing brand producing products primarily in the UK from natural materials like British wool and sheepskin. And you may be able to see in that top photo there that our warehouse is an old cow barn we converted back in the 90s, which is conveniently opposite the local pub. We are mainly wholesale trade, so supplying our Glencroft country wear to shops and retailers in the UK and worldwide. But we also go direct to consumers through our factory shop in Clapham, and we launched a retail business, a retail website a few years ago, which we're actively trying to grow. So onto the Clapdale Wool project and our involvement with the Sustainable Development Fund. So people often ask about our jumpers. Are your jumpers made from local sheep? And an answer up until we did this project was no. We do make 100% British wool jumpers, but previously local supply chain just hadn't been possible. However, it has been a dream of mine to say yes, emphatically, to this question. And so with the help of the SDF, we have made this a reality, which I'll come on to. Just a bit of background. The dream of making local wool goes back to the values of our business. So like many Yorkshire businesses, we like to trade on the Yorkshire brand. We're not quite Yorkshire tea, but being able to say things like we're a woolly jumper brand forged under Inglebrook, one of the famous Yorkshire Three Peaks, is clearly a massive selling point. As some of you may spot in the pictures there, we use the Dales bred breed in a lot of our branding with the distinctive white patches either side of their nose. Because the Dales bred breed has been native to our little part of the Dales, Clapdale, for hundreds of years. As one local farmer around here once told me, the Dales bred is very similar to a Swaledale, but superior in every way. Our traveller label on the right there of this slide has an outline of Ingleborough behind it. We do try and work closely with organisations like our local village community and local charity, but I've wanted to always be more embedded in our local area than this. That's the dream of why making jumpers from the local sheep has been so important to me. And I also wanted the Dales bred sheep to be something we're more connected to rather than just a mascot that we use on pictures. That's me holding a Dales bred sheep's fleece right there. So that's about 2 to 3 kilos weight. And the regular price our farmers get paid for this from British Wool auctions is about 30 pence a kilo. In fact, one farmer told me a few years ago that he sent his wool to the auctions, and when he got his wool check back after they made the deductions for transportation, it was negative. So the whole process of sending the wool off to be sold had cost him money. The wool was worth less than the price to transport it. So this just further added to my desire as someone running a wool clothing brand out here to really figure out how I can make use of this Dales bred fleece, amongst others, and make things a bit better for our local farmers, many of whom I've known my whole life. Their involvement with the Dales goes back many more generations than our business. And I wanted to figure out a way that our farmers could get something reasonable for their wool. The wool check used to not just pay for the transportation, but it used to pay for the shearing of the sheep and also the farm's rent for a year. And through all this, I wanted our brand to be more integral part of the Dales, not just in marketing and where we're based. Like with many things, it's chatting to people that I discovered what might be possible. We were chatting to a knitwear designer about how we'd like to be more local, and they put us in touch with Maria on the right of this picture, who has a diversification project called Dodgson Wood in the Lake District, and she has worked with the Lake District National Park to produce products from her own and surrounding farms' wool. And Zoe on the left there has a PhD in wool and a specialist in British sheep breeds, so she was able to help too. So from these conversations about how they had made products from local wool with the Lake District National Park, it got me to contact the Yorkshire Dales. So we spoke to the National Park about 2 grants, farming in protected landscapes and the SDF Sustainable Development Fund. We costed up our project as best as we could, and it worked out just shy of about £15,000, which meant that the SDF seemed to be more suitable for us at this stage. Farming in protected landscapes tends to work with bigger projects, although they also have slightly different criteria. We're actually working with them now on the 2nd year of our Clapdale Wool project, and I'm happy to answer questions on that later. We're a small business of just 3 partners and 2 part-time staff, but we do have big ambitions. So taking on a project of this value with many unknowns, it would still have been a step too far for us from a cash flow perspective. And that's where the grant comes in. It helps small businesses or organizations do something that you can't necessarily afford to do on your own. Like with all grants, there's an application process which actually helped us understand and think about what we were doing. Things like nailing down the supply chain, getting quotes, getting together accurate estimates on cash flow, revenue projections. Andrea and her team are on hand to help you with this because at the end of the day, they just want to work on projects that will benefit the Yorkshire Dales. And then if you are successful, they are still on hand during your project as well, on the end of email or phone. This is my most wordy slide. It's an overview of the project. As you can see, we costed it just under £15,000. I'll go through what we did briefly in the following slides, but that's the cost of purchasing wool from farmers and getting it processed into yarn, plus branding, packaging, consultancy, knitwear design, logistics as well. And for that, we were offered a grant of £5,000, so about a third. It's still a lot of money to spend for us, but knowing we'd only had to spend £10,000 and not £15,000 does reduce our risk. We didn't get the budget quite right. You can see there was quite a large increase, as happens, but that was mainly to do with deciding to spend more on our marketing and packaging to cover running the project in future years. So larger expenditure up front, so we didn't have to spend it in the future. And then the last main thing on the grant I'll do is, I won't go into technicalities of the grant application. That's the question for Andrea, but I will thought this question was relevant. So how does your project contribute to the National Park's natural beauty, engage with the public, relates to plan objectives? You will have heard Andrea say something similar. So for us, we were giving back to local farmers. So we're paying them more for their wool and giving them a percentage of profits of everything we sold. So this can helpfully boost the local economy. We're using wool from the Dales bred breed, amongst others. So hopefully we're helping farmers to find a way to make farming this type of rare breed more viable and keeping the Dales full of sheep and looking like the Dales. We're also, through our products, branding, promotion, highlighting farming and sheep in the Dales. So we're engaging with the public and giving them a window into this part of the world. And then finally, climate change is part of the National Park objectives. And we're using local wool to make clothing within 60 miles of the farms the sheep are on. So that's a sustainable supply chain. And so we're given the go-ahead to begin, and I'm just going to whiz you through the actual process, as it is very specific to our project, just to hopefully give you a taste of what we did. We pay the farmers a minimum of £1 a kilo for their wool, 3 times what they get for their auction price for some breeds, plus a share of 10% of the profits. From the beginning, we want to use all the breeds on the fields around here so we could reflect the area in our yarn, which is the Dales bred, Teeswater, Blueface Leicester, and then even less glamorous breeds like Texels and North of England mules, because that's what's on the farms here. And you'll see in the photos we collected the wool in all sorts of vehicles. Then we collected it all back to our warehouse, sorted it by breed, and then weighed it so we could pay the farmers the correct amount of money for their wool. We collected just over 500 kilos this first year, as that's the minimum quantity you can get commercially scoured or cleaned. We drove it to Bradford, where it was scoured, which means cleaning, essentially. It blends all the wool together, and washes it thoroughly to remove natural oils, dirt, grass, all that sort of thing. Up to 50% of the weight of the wool is lost in this process, which is normal. So we started with 570 kilos, and it went down to 340 kilos of scoured wool. The next stage is carding, combing, and gilling, which is aligning fibres essentially to create a wool top, like I'm holding in the right of your photo, and that's what spinners use to create yarn. And like with scouring, we also lose a bit of the wool, something called noil, which is the shorter fibres which literally drop out of the carding process. But we did keep this waste. You can see my daughter inquisitively taking a look at it in the back of the car. And we actually sold it on for felting or stuffing. So we're keen not to waste anything from this project. Finally, the wool reaches the final stage in the supply chain before it's made into hanks of wool for the hand knitters and cones of wool for us to use on knitting machines to make garments from. And our first sellable product was this hank of undyed hand knit wool that we were able to take to market in May 2022 and start bringing in revenue for the project. That was the first point when actually revenue started coming in, which was good. We then followed this up with finished knitwear in the form of the limited edition Thwaite jumper you can see here, and I'm wearing. Processing half a ton of wool is expensive. The cost price per kilo of this yarn on the left is £30. So if you make a jumper that weighs a kilo, then the cost is £30 before we even start manufacturing. So with this in mind, we knew it was going to be an expensive jumper. So we set out to design one that could justify this premium. It was thick and heavy and featured this original design of deep zigzag grooves to try and add light and colour to an undyed yarn and reflect the undulating dales, which I hope we've done. It comes in a box that tells the story of Clapdale Wool, from the farmers to the raw wool that we made it with. But as you may be thinking, some hand knit yarn and an exclusive limited edition jumper is not just the basis of an ongoing wool economy. So we've contacted fashion designers as we want to try and get really high-end couture to start specifying our wool in their garments, especially for brands looking for that ultimate traceability and sustainability. We appeared on the catwalk at London Fashion Week earlier this year with designer Edward Crutchley in this left-hand image. We're taking what we learned from this first year manufacturing 500 kilos, and we've been able to expand the project, and we're producing woven cloth in coming months so we can make things like tailored suits. And we're getting out there too. We're attending events. We're speaking to knitters. We're trying to understand what they want from a yarn business. So to finish up, I think it probably goes without saying that this whole thing couldn't be possible without SDF support. And to finish is a photo of local farmer William Dawson on the left, me, Zoe and Maria, our consultants, and then the National Parks Carl Liss on the end there. And I've put this on here to show that it was a collaboration between an independent business working with the local community, farmers in our case, and the National Park to support a project that would be difficult to fund without their help. As I mentioned briefly before, off the back of this project, we've managed to expand to 3 tons of wool with 7 local farms. We're working with the Farming and Protected Landscapes grant on this next stage, which is again helping us move this along quicker than if we had to fund it ourselves entirely. We aren't at the stage yet of taking wool from farmers every year or from every farm, and I hope we are slowly building a new market for Yorkshire's wool. And in the time, I want to make this project self-sustaining. I'd encourage people to make use of this brilliant resource for our local economy, because for us it's helped me achieve a long-held ambition, and I'm sure there'll be more to come.